conquer I. Oh, guide I by day and watch I by night. I pray you'll restore your people's sight. Naughty got to be firm and strong in this time of faith again. Selfishness at its highest job, but my soul will never be so. Jealous stronger than any weapon.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Hines, it's happy to see you. Can you confirm if you're hearing me, please?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let me officially say welcome to our National Youth Council of Jamaica in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, our training session. And this afternoon, we will be looking at the National Youth Policy. And let me share screen just a second. Yes, so we will be looking at the National Youth Policy. And this afternoon, we have a very experienced gentleman who will be leading us in this content. But just before we delve into the agenda, I ask that you assume the position for prayer as we invoke the presence of the Lord with us. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your goodness. We thank you for your grace. We thank you for your mercy. Lord, as we gather on this virtual platform, we pray, God, that you will be with us. Let your will be done God, I thank you for journeying mercies for each and every one of us, for all that you would have done throughout the course of the day and what you're about to do. We thank you, Lord Jesus. Oh God, the content that will be presented this afternoon, let it be cemented in our thoughts so, God, we can use it as a form of reference in executing our roles as youth leaders and young people alike. Let your will be done. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. Amen. Amen and amen. Family, I trust that my voice finds you all well this afternoon and you're coping amidst the challenges that we are facing in society and by extension, the world. It is a nice day to be here and it's happy that we can rely on the traditions of society and also learn new content as we proceed in advancing the welfare of our Jamaica land we love. And I pause to congratulate, I use this platform to congratulate our three Jamaican women who would have performed or given a scintillating performance this morning. Completely mind-blowing, scintillating performance. We were able to get that Quinella, Elaine Thompson, Hira, Shillian Fraser Price, and of course Sharika Jackson. And we pause to congratulate them. As I said earlier, it is a privilege to have you all with us. And we know that our presenter, in the person of Mr. David Horton, will present the content with clarity and as interactive as possible. So I am Ikula Pierce, the first deputy chairman for the National Youth Council of Jamaica. And my role as the first deputy chairman, it encompasses the training and development aspect of the council. So I am in charge of that portfolio, and I'm telling you, I intend to work assiduously in advancing the welfare of the National Youth Council of Jamaica through this council. And I must say that I have a committed team working with, and I'm just going to project the members of my team because we are working together to advance the welfare of Jamaica land we love. And that committee comprises of Miss Danielle Miller. Miss Danielle Miller is the current festival queen for Hanover. She is the vice president of the Hanover Parish Youth Council. Secondly, we have Mr. Jamar Grant. He is the public relation officer for the Westmoreland Council. Ms. Latifa James, she is the president for the St. James Parish Youth Council. Ms. Codian Melbourne, she's the president for the Chilani Parish Youth Council. Mr. Jerome Hanson, the vice president for the Manchester Parish Youth Council. Mr. Denton Dunkley, the treasurer for the St. Catherine Parish Youth Council. Ms. Sheree Campbell, the vice president for the St. Mary Parish Youth Council. Ms. Naveda Green, the vice president for the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation or the municipality. Mr. Demon Tagnak, he is the president for the Portmore Council, and Madam Theona Godfrey, the president for the Portmore Municipality. I tell you, on this committee, we have passionate young people from all over the island. And this committee comprises of 6 females and 5 males, inclusive of myself. So I want to suggest that the thoughts and the insights will be thrown all over the place in order for us to reach at a common mandate. And that is what we want the council to reflect, that, you know, we can have the full-fledged conversations, we can disagree sometimes, but all that we are doing must surround the welfare of developing our youths and the youth populace by extension. I would have posted a Google link in the chat. I am asking you kindly to visit that link as it serves as a registration document. You know, in this time, registration and, you know, showing up makes a tremendous difference. I pause to welcome Mr. Horton on the call. I also want to recognize Mr. Guyan Mitchell. He is our advisor So he provides direct oversight for the National Youth Council of Jamaica, and you will hear from him a little bit later. So that is it for my committee. And I want to also pause to inform you that though we are positioned to work with the training and development aspect, we want to ensure that all our youths are holistically developed so that they can better able provide the level of work in society, because we know that if a person or an individual is not equipped or armed with the necessary information, then just a second. I see you. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. As I was saying, we recognize the importance of formal training because we want our young people to be equipped or armed with the necessary information, the necessary training opportunities, because it is very important that they are exposed to these things so that they can discharge their duties effectively and efficiently. So at this time, I want to pause to welcome Mr. Guyan Mitchell, as he will be bringing greetings on behalf of the Ministry of Education and, of course, blessing us with his presence. Sir Mitchell.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I am happy to be here. Thank you, Ikula, for that, overview. And I must say that definitely sessions like these are very important. We have a lot of new persons, that are involved in the National Youth Council of Jamaica. And as we go along, we want to ensure that we build the capacity of the various youth organizations and our parish youth councils. And so the various topics that the committee has decided on are topics that the committee believe are very important for our youth leaders that are here, that are involved in the whole movement. The more we have information also help us with the decision-making process. So the more we have information, then the better we are able to actually move our agenda forward. Information help us with proper project planning and implementation. And so the National Youth Policy is something that every youth should know. When you know the policy, then you know exactly what it is that the government has agreed on in terms of that guide, the guide to youth development in Jamaica, the priority areas, what the government has decided on. And Mr. Horn will go into this in terms of how the youth policy came about. A lot of persons, the youth policy may sound new to you, so it's important that we provide that information in terms of how we came up with the youth policy. Of course, it was through consultation, and it did take some time for us, to move it from one place to the other till getting it, approved by Parliament or passed by Parliament. So this is the youth policy, and we want every young person to understand it, know it, and so you even know what it is that you're holding the government accountable for in terms of what we agree on in terms of a nation, and the things that we will be focusing on. And so I welcome everyone that is here, and I ask that you continue to support the various, capacity building training. It's not just support, but it is for your own personal development. And so we ask that you participate in these sessions. So you come today and you will continue to attend the other workshops. And we promise that it will be very informative, and you, at the end of the day, will benefit personally, and your youth organizations also will benefit as well. So thank you for coming, and enjoy the rest of the evening. So back to you.
Thank you so. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. So at this time, it is not our intention to be here for an extended period. You know, to be honest, we believe that, well, I believe that presentations should be comparable to a miniskirt. It should be long enough to cover the elements, but should be short enough to create excitement. So I am going to jump right into an icebreaker. I will ask too that if it is that you are correct, you send me a private message with your number as well as the network provider. So I do hope that you participate before Mr. Horton comes to deliver the content. So we are going for $100 credit. Would it be a digital or a lime? It's really up to you. So for 100, the question is, how can you, well, it is a riddle. How can you stand behind your father if he is standing behind you? If it is more convenient for you to open your mic, you can do so through Mr. Miller, or you can go ahead and type your answer in the chat. How can you stand behind your father if he is standing behind you?
They have to be standing back to back.
Ms. McCormack?
You hear me? Hello?
I am hearing you quite well.
Okay.
All right. You're correct. You're correct. They have to be standing back to back. And this, so Ms. McCormack, I have your number, so I'll just forward the credit over to you.
Yes, it's
This,
digital.
why could it not be Flow?
The bigger, better network for sure.
I don't know who will be paying for the free advertisement, but okay, Miss McCormack, I will keep in touch. So the next question, it says, what year was the first draft of the National Youth Policy introduced? In what year? Look at Miss White. Look at Miss White. Miss White, I was about to say that members of any national executive, they are not allowed to partake. But anyhow, since you would have gone ahead and answer, I will make the credit available to you. Thank you, Miss McCormack, and thank you, Miss White. And of course, I must inform you that Miss Letitia White is the president for the National Police Youth Club movement. We're happy to have you on board as we seek to advance the welfare of Jamaica collaboratively. It is my duty. On the agenda, you would have seen where Miss Sherry Campbell is responsible to introduce Mr. Horton. However, I am aware that she had talk of youth engagements today, and she would have informed me, that she might not make it in time. However, I will move to introduce our guest speaker, All right. Our guest speaker is a graduate of the Northern Caribbean University with a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology. He served as the president of the Northern Caribbean University Students Movement and currently serving as the policy analyst in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Mr. Horton is also tasked to provide direct oversight for the Jamaica Union of Tertiary Students. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our privilege and esteemed pleasure to welcome Mr. Davy Horton, who will be taking us through the National Youth Policy. Mr. Davy Horton, thank you for being here, and it is now over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pierce, So I'm not familiar with the new cohort of the National Youth Council of Jamaica. So I'm really happy for this opportunity to communicate, to interact with you. I think perhaps this will be the first setting that I'll have that sort of opportunity to interact with the entire executive. And I believe this includes also the parish youth council executives as well. Thank you very much for having me. I know Mr. Mitchell would have gone through or alluded to some aspects of the national youth policy. But before I get into that, the presentation, I'd like to just provide you with an idea of the approach that I will take this evening. So the idea is I have a few multimedia videos and also an excerpt that we got done in partnership with the University of the West Indies Language Unit in Patois. So you must be excited to listen to the youth policy in Patois. So it won't necessarily be me just talking about the youth policy, but sharing with you other other learning aids that should help you to assimilate what it is and how it applies to yourself, to all you, to all the entire members as a collective, and yourself individually as a youth. So before I get into that, I realized you guys would have done a little icebreaker. And I see where you would have asked one particular question on the national youth policy, right? I believe. And so I have a little educative icebreaker as well. So I'm going to go through that. And I'm not sure, should I say Siobhan, the chairperson of the National Youth Council of Jamaica, will be responsible for the prize giving in phone cards, that is. So Mr. Siobhan, just know that you'll be responsible for the phone cards, and you can affirm, you can unmute to affirm, so I know you're in agreement as well, and that'll help to offset some of that cost. So we will start with that, then I'll get into the segue into the presentation, and then at intervals, I'll share with you media clippings that we, the intention for those is for us to have a discussion around those pointers. And hopefully this is, I'll try to be as succinct as possible with the presentation. Nonetheless, what I could do, we could possibly stop halfway and pick up back next weekend, because the idea is I don't necessarily want to make haste going through the session and then but there's not much for you to take away in terms of how you may apply. Yes, I'll be sharing with you the ebook, the link to the ebook copy online, but it would be good to go through the policy together with you guys as youth leaders, so you could see how this not only applies in your personal life, but also how you may utilize it as a tool to guide the youth programming of the National Youth Council of Jamaica. And so I'm going to ask for us, if you have any sort of question, I will definitely make that attempt to go through to stop and take those questions, or we could do that at the end. But if it's a burning question, sure, you may unmute and just chime in. Mr. Mitchell, Guyana, I'm going to ask you to enable share screen on my end, so I'm able to share those, not only the presentation, but the related media files I'll be using to assist in this session. But before, again, can I have, I'm not sure, is there Mr. Chairman, Mr. Brown, Siobhan, and the entire executive, a matter of fact, do you prefer if I present the session in a part 1, part 2 manner, or should I do a crash course thing through it for today? Because I could do one part today and then we could catch up at the next part. And so it would be, it would be, in my estimation, it would be way more beneficial for you guys as youth leaders, especially those who will be interacting with the policy for the first time. So before I go any further, and I know it's kind of impromptu, it wasn't planned, it just came to me that, hey, we're doing this, I'm doing this with youth leaders, and the policy is a tool that guides not only our work in the ministry as youth practitioners and those in private sector in youth service, but it guides a big part of your work as well. So I need some sort of feedback, whether I'm doing a crash course or I should just go ahead and do it in a part 1, part 2 type of presentation. So Mr. Mitchell and members of the National Youth Council, could you just chime in before I move into that aspect and let me know quickly?
You're able to share.
Okay, so I'm able to share screen. On the last note now, am I doing a crash course type youth policy presentation session, or should I take it through a bit more slowly and more practically, and which would take a bit more time? 2 sessions, no, a 45-minute session, no, and a next 45-minute session a next weekend, 45-minute to an hour session a next weekend. Because I'm not a big fan of doing one long presentation. I would prefer doing it in parts or broken down if I'm not doing a crash course type.
Yes, I think that they would benefit more from a a part 1, part 2 type presentation, as it would allow you to really go more deeper into the policy than just little crash course and then a lot of information persons might not really get. So I think we could actually fit you into another
and it doesn't necessarily have
weekend.
to be next weekend. It could be another weekend, not necessarily next weekend.
Yes, understand.
You just have to advise me of whichever weekend that is, and I'll make myself available for the next session. Okay. All right.
Great. Yeah, man, that sounds great.
I'll take, yes, because there's some media files I'd want to discuss as well, or share and discuss with you guys. All right. So the first screen I'm about to share is the icebreaker activity, and I'll just skip the first question that was asked on it. Okay. So let's move into that. All right, so let me just keep these slides right here. Okay, so the question, this question was asked, so I'm going to just forego this question. I believe someone got that question right, and I'll just move into. All right, so phone cards, as usual, is the prize, whether it be for Digicel or Flow, whether it be for the bigger, better network or the other network, as some of you guys put it earlier. So here we go. And this is a screenshot of the activity because I'm not able to actually share the interactive version with you all. All right. And remember, as I was saying, because it's hard to pay attention to written messages, if there is an urgent thing, just briefly unmute and say it so I may adjust, because I've been doing some of these sessions already. And I'll miss key information being written in the messages. Okay. All right. So the first question here and is what's the percentage of Jamaica? What percentage of Jamaica's population are youth? And I believe you would have, if you were paying attention, may have gotten the answer for that one, but I'll still go ahead with it so I'll know those who were paying attention. But that's the first question. So anybody want to take a chance at this one? You're
Approximately 28.
All right, so no prize will be awarded for that one. But yes, good. At least you were paying attention. Could you say your name?
I'm Onika McCormick.
Onika, okay. All right, going through the session, whenever you chime in, just so I get to know you, you could just say briefly your name and whether or not you're serving on the Parish Youth Council or the National Youth Council. So name and your position on the National Youth Council.
Alrighty, so I'm Onika McCormick. I'm serving on the executive and I'm the deputy secretary of the exec.
Okay. All right, Anika. Okay, so good. So let's move on and let's see if Anika will chime in for the other one. Okay. All right. And there are some clues, some subliminal clues if you're paying really good attention. And now this other question is on, okay, the National Youth Policy. Which one of these frameworks would have been used to, yes, go ahead. Ellis Warmington. Just chime in. As in, open your speaker because I'm unable to literally check the messages while doing the presentations. It's all right, or I don't want it to be popping up on you guys' screen. Okay. All right, so you're saying, so Shakira, if I get your name correctly, you're saying Vision 2030. All right. Anybody else? Anybody else wants to chime in on that one?
The screen is saying all of the above.
No, am I sharing the wrong? Am I sharing the right presentation? It is. Yes, you guys are correct. But am I sharing the right? Why is my screen going in the answers first? Why?
It wasn't showing the answers first.
It didn't?
I think when we clicked on it, that's when we are seeing everything.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, we're at the next question here. And this is an easy one. And could you just identify your name because I'm serious about those phone cards. And Siobhan, Mr. Chairman, and I will underwrite the cost for those. So who wants to take this one on? It's a true and false right here.
So Shakira Wellington says true. So that's for Shakira.
Okay. All right, that's correct. That's correct. Someone seems that they have been going through the policy booklet. Okay. Let's move on.
Oh, so the answer is false.
Hmm?
The answer is false.
Oh yes, I'm scrolling through. Oh yes, yeah.
Yes, the answer is false.
It's actually 6 policy priority areas and goal areas, and we'll go through them. And as I was saying, just look carefully. There are actually some subliminal clues on the slides in the background to some of these answers. Okay, so that, all right. So the National Youth Policy contains what we call guiding principles, and we'll get into that and why those are important. And know which of these are guiding principle, which of these are not really a guiding principle of the policy here.
Advocacy.
So Shakira said partnership and collaboration.
Okay. Anybody else wants to try? Not that
Yes,
she.
sir. I'm saying
Anybody else wants to try?
Advocacy and equity.
Advocacy. Who said that?
I cool up here, sir.
All right. Let's see if I cool I get it right, or if it's Shakira get it right. All right. So you have a phone card to get. Okay. So
I thought national executives were not supposed to partake in this.
no man, both national and parish can partake.
I could have got share credit with me.
All right. So please note, because I'm not taking note mentally of the winners. So just note that. Okay. So I can get on the credit. All right. The next one is the next true and false. So the National Youth Policy describes or defines youth as those persons between the ages of 15 and 29 years.
True.
True? All right.
True.
Anybody else feel that this or have a different answer? Nobody else want to take a shot at this one? Okay, so who said true a while ago?
Nashe Bartley.
All right. It's Bart, let's see if you get it right. Okay. So you have a phone card right there. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop this here and I'm going to continue with this segment. At the part 2, I don't want to give away all the phone cards right now. I don't want to give away all the phone cards right now. So I just leave some in there. All right. So note those names and you could just drop that in the message. I know Guyan will definitely follow up with me and on a chairperson so you guys can get on the credit. All right. Remember, whenever I say how much no I get, whenever I say if we don't get $500, $100 or $50, or whenever I say if the $100 was split 4 ways, that sort of stuff, but I get credit. All right. All right. So let's move over to the actual presentation and get started with that one. So what's happening here? Okay, so a new share now. And this is the new share. All right, I'm hoping you all are seeing my screen. If you're not, please chime in. Again, as I said, I prefer if you chime in vocally than verbally because I might not be following closely the written messages because I'm presenting. All right, so if there is anyone not seen, just chime in and let me know. All right, so before we get into the presentation, this is how we are going to overview what we will discuss for the next 45 minutes thereabout, and continue on at the part 2, whether it be next weekend or another weekend. All right, so the presentation today, what we will take a closer look at in terms of the National Youth Policy is how it's the makeup of it. And we'll discuss these 7 pointers throughout the presentation today and part 2. We'll discuss the importance of youth and youth development against the background of the National Youth Policy. That is really us identifying, okay, what are the situation and the challenges affecting young people. That's the second point we will discuss. We'll discuss the guiding principles of the National Youth Policy and why those are necessary, especially for practitioners or those working in the field. And the national commitments made under the National Youth Policy, those government commitments, the policy priority areas on which those commitments are made. 6, the goals and the strategic objectives of the policy. What does the policy aim to achieve? And the 7th thing that we'll discuss, a monitoring and evaluation mechanism to track the success of the policy. Now, in all of this, there are some other issues or some other salient points that we will discuss throughout the presentation. For today, we will look much more closer to the first 2, and then we will get back in the next session to start focus a lot more closely on the meat of the matter, which is the National Youth Policy priority areas and the goals, and how and what are those commitments communicated by the government of Jamaica, and then your rights and your responsibility in terms of how can you hold government accountable for these policy goals. Now, all of this was really just taken from the preamble in the policy. As you know, a preamble basically encapsulates and preface or overview whatever subject matter we'll be discussing, and today it's the youth policy. Now, so it would have been said to you that the policy would have been revised, and this is literally the 3rd iteration, and it literally presents the issues affecting our youth, their personal experiences, as well as their expectations, and how all of these fall into a broader vision, goal, and strategies presented within the context of the National Youth Policy. Now, the National Youth Policy encapsulates and includes the vision of our children and the national vision. And I'm going to get into why that is so necessary. It's necessary because, for one, there's an intersectionality between childhood and moving into what we call adolescence, and moving into more closely youth. And so it's essential that National Youth Policy vision somewhat coordinates with that of Jamaica's vision for children. No, the Vision 2030, why it is necessary, it falls within a broader framework. All the government of Jamaica plans and policies literally aligns or must align with Vision 2030. And that is important. So there is a harmony in terms of how the government plans, in terms of how the government implement developmental programs. And these are wide and varying. The National Youth Policy is just one of such development plans or programs, which feeds into Vision 2030. Now, by now you would have read what it says here, but what I'll read is the National Youth Policy Vision, which basically captures both. And it says here, all Jamaican youth realizing their full potential through access to opportunities to develop, participate, and contribute as responsible citizens to sustainable and national development. Now, but you'll realize how basically it cooperates the vision of our children and the national vision, how similar it sounds. And so you see how they all align. So what we're going to do, before I move any further, I'm going to share with you the audio excerpt on the National Youth Policy in Patois. And then we're going to move forward into the background of the National Youth Policy and the issues affecting our young people and how that actually shape the goals and the priority areas. So let me do a new share right here. But before advance, just so you hear the sound. Yes. Okay. Share this. Advance. Okay. Right, let me literally open that file.
The youth
Okay, hold on. All right. New share. New share, new share, new share. All right, so all right, let's see. Share computer sound. Okay, share computer sound. Good.
The youth them for know what the government are gonna do for them. A long time now.
All right, did you hear that? I just tested the first part of it. So just confirm if you had heard that first for a second before I continue playing, because I don't want to be playing and then you're unable to hear.
Hearing clearly.
Okay, you're hearing? Okay,
Yes.
so I'll just resume. All right.
Now Jamaica make a pledge to the youth them from way back in the 1980s. The government say more hard work after put in and the youth them progress are gonna play one big part in the plan for make Jamaica get better and better. It now got easy for do this. All of the ministry them and the important people them have to go work together. If this happening now, all of the youths them can make it in a life. Jamaican youths make up more than quarter of the somebody them will live in Jamaica and them have one big part for play in a Jamaican progress. We're gonna need more people for pay attention and support the youths them progress. If the youths them grow, them can make the change in the society and the economy what we want to see. The revised National Youth Policy did make enough problem did debate. It can move from what happen in the environment, like how time I get hotter, global warming, to what go on in the streets with crime and violence. But for every problem, one way that they for fix it. Not true. So what the government really said them are gonna do? Them a said the youths them have to start take charge of them own progress and take responsibility for the change them where them want to see around them. It not go easy, but with the support from the government progress plan, we go put in for one long time, and with the right and proper structure, we can make it work. After all, we lick a bit, but we talawa. And what the government are gonna do for we? Well, them a look for all of the problem them will stop we from reach with highest in our life. So pre this, the government come up with 6 goals what them want do and do good, so we can be who we supposed to be in our life. Come make we look on the goal them no. Youths, members say, are we responsible for future, you know? Goal 1, make it easier for people get a high school, university, or vocational trade education. This just a say, all our way for go to school for get one good education, no matter who we be. The government are gonna look on all of the things them were wrong. We are top way from be the best what we can be. That nice, see? So it no matter if you're a boy pitney or girl pitney, all our way are gonna get something from it. The government are pre some extra support, not just for the social part, but for deal with feelings too. This I got in at the high school them. Goal 2, make it easier for you get the service them for deal with anything with your sex life, your body part them will make baby, and your mental health. You didn't know say enough Jamaican youths have HIV AIDS and have problem with the body part them will make baby, but them can't get for use the health service them where they there? No worry your head though. That goal come about for change up the thing. It come about for make sure say all of we get the opportunity for use the health service them where they bought for start out to body, anything for do with sex, with mental health, or just how we feel. Boy, them say them a go tell we what them a go do for we. Plus, them a go tell we the program them where look hard for any and everything for do with health. But them just want for know say we are play the biggest role in our own health choice them, and anything will happen cause of the choice them what we make. That goal here explain what the sex choice them be, so make sure you're wise up about what you are do. If you don't remember nothing else, just remember we are telling this. We are boost you up for boots up. Wrap it up before you back it up. Goal number 3. We have to make the number youth we can get good work and have them own a business go up. If we are cut down from poverty and fix up the economic condition them, then the youth them have to go give back to the economy in a one good way. But this feel hard and hard when we can't get work in the first place. So how them are gonna make sure say we can get work for take care of ourselves, we family and build we country? Them say public and private sector are gonna work together for help we get work. Government are try them best to make the national training period and work experience program bigger for give the youth them good work after them done school. But at the end of the day, all of we no want work for somebody else. Some of we have dreams to be our own boss. Well, government has said we must do this, and them a big up anybody who want be them owner boss in the sports and agriculture sector. After all, youths are free time now.
All right, so that's it. I hope you heard it very much clearly without any sort of difficulties. So that essentially is a background to the National Youth Policy, and also a somewhat like a crash course overview of the priority areas and the goals, and essentially what we intend as a government to accomplish by 2030. And it doesn't necessarily mean that these will be done in a very perfectly painted pictures, because by 2030, we may find that there are other areas that we may have to work to improve with respect to youth and youth development. Now, before I get back to the presentation, I'm not too sure if anybody has any sort of quick comment on the audio version right there. Any comments? We're all here to learn. There is no sort of how I should say, you can't be wrong here. You're asking a question, or if you're commenting on something or making an observation. So feel free to comment. I'm here as well to learn from you. I find the more I do these presentation with young people, the more I learn something about, not necessarily with respect to the national youth policy, but in connection to the national youth policy and how we may maybe change something, or yeah, change something or do something differently. So if you have any sort of comments on that, please share. Oh, I realized Tashana just commented in the chat. Oh yeah, man, big up yourself. That's it's a good production, and we hope Tashana to do the entire policy booklet, an audio version, really, just like how we have the New Testament of the Bible in audio. So we hope to get there where we can publicize the audio, an audio version to the National Youth Policy in Patois, because it is our language. Yes, Jamaica, English is our language as well, but we cannot, it's indisputable that Patois, it belongs to us, and we speak to each other in the language every day. And so it does help when we communicate materials like this in that language as well. Okay, so no one has any sort of observation, comments right now. So I'll just continue with this session now. From the current slide, I'm hoping you are seeing the slide I'm on. Okay. All right. So now let's just continue where we left off. So where are we coming from? And here we'll be discussing a little more. We'll get into the historical background of the National Youth Policy and some of the issues really affecting young people. Okay, and you'll realize right through the presentation, you'll see subscript in Patois, and that's because even in the policy booklet itself, we partnered with the language unit at UWI to ensure that we have excerpt or section of the booklet well expressed in Patois. So we've taken that approach with even the visual presentation here. And if you're curious of what it says, because we speak it a lot, but we are not necessarily articulate or good at reading it. It says here, the policy, yeah, come about to make sure the things set right for the youths them. All right, so quick, and I'm sure when we do the icebreaker in the next session on the policy, everybody should be getting those answers right, because hey, you guys are literally all going through some of the sections that I would have asked icebreaker based or interactive questions on. So here you'll realize there's a timeline from 1985 through to 2017. That's the timeline from the inception of the National Youth Policy to the date it was revised and tabled in Parliament.
Sir Houghton?
Yes.
Yeah, we are not seeing, you're showing the PowerPoint again? Because we're not.
Yes. Okay, thanks for chiming in. Let me reshare that, because right now it's literally saying I'm sharing the screen, but let me go again and share. All right. Could you now confirm if you're seeing the screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good. All right. So as I was saying, no, you're seeing a timeline or a lifeline of the National Youth Policy, if you want to put it that way. And the timeline starts from 1985, and you have here not necessarily where it terminates, but it goes up to 2017, which is the date that the policy was tabled in Parliament. So the timeline literally covers up to 2017, almost basically 30 years thereabout. So yes, so the policy has been around for over a quarter of a century so far, and still going strong as a tool that guides youth development in Jamaica. So it was first introduced, as said here, in 1985. And I can give you some backstory to that when it was then reintroduced as a comprehensive policy in 1994. No, but in 1985 rather, that would have prompted several things in Jamaica. And one of the very important event it prompted relating to youth and young people is Jamaica ratifying the Convention on the Rights of a Child. We would have ratified, at least to this date, maybe one or two of the optional protocol on the rights of a child, which is essentially what you'd call maybe supplementary international UN-based treaties to the rights of a child. Now, after that, that led to, in a way, the 1992 Vision of Youth paper published, which basically communicates a broader vision for young people in Jamaica. And that would have been taken into consideration in the 1994 first ever comprehensive policy. So when it was introduced in 85, it wasn't a table document as it indicates here. It says draft. When it was literally tabled in Parliament for the first time, that would have been in 1994. And some of the young people then that worked on it, and who are some are radio and TV personalities, celebrity if you want to put it that way, and even former government ministers. So one other person would have worked on or involved in a consultation for the 1994 policy was Lisa Hanna. We have, I think, Paul on Porter, as well as a media personality. So you can see how through the last 2.5 decades, how the policy would have been impacted by youth participation in the development of it, just the same, because those persons are our seniors, are really adult seniors, if you want to just put it that way. No. So then in 1995, it led to the reintroduction of the National Youth Service. And quite a bit of us can relate to the National Youth Service, the NYS, and its programs. Then in 1997, the policy, we developed the first policy on children to support the provision of care and development of children in Jamaica. And this precedes what we now know as the child care and the child care, the Child Care and Development Act, which is which is not a policy, it's a legislation, an act of parliament, which basically established the CPFSA, formerly known as CDA, and governs how the CPFSA facilitates, operates, and implement programs for the care and protection of Jamaican children. No, so all of these events, they are not just random events. Believe me, they do act on each other. So after in 1999, a big milestone for youth and youth development was the passing of the National Youth Service Act, and this was basically further just reinforcing government commitments to youth. And in what way? The National Youth Service Act was established to really facilitate apprenticeship and school to work transition and work experience type training for young Jamaican transitioning between or making a transition between secondary school into tertiary or secondary school into the labor market. And so that served its purpose. And you know that the NYS has been merged or assimilated under the what we now call the HARTRUS NSTA, the National Service and Training Agency. In 2000, then we had the establishment of the National Center for Youth Development. And maybe not, I would have known about the National Center for Youth Development because during that time I would have been in my teens during that time. And so that was the focal entity. Now, what you guys know is a youth division. So what you now know really is the NCUID evolving into the youth division of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. It was first a government department. Now, then in 2004, we have the National Youth Policy, the second official iteration, which further defined a common vision and framework for youth development. And this also provided a more relevant research and data on how the government of Jamaica could act to provide an environment to facilitate youth development in Jamaica at the time. And that second iteration would have expired in 2017 when we revised the act. But in between, the policy rather, but in between, it took us about 3 years to conduct the revision. Sometimes in government, these things take a while. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality. But we got it done. So the revision actually started in 2013 and we completed it in 2016. And now we're here at this current iteration of the National Youth Policy to basically reinforce the government of Jamaica commitment to youth. Now, a little background, the youth policy identified these key pointers on youth. One, it defines youth as between the ages of 15 and 29 years of age. That definition would have been taken from one of the several broader policy framework document. And but in particular, the Commonwealth Plan of Action for Youth, I believe. So we basically adopted the Commonwealth definition for youth. And why? Because in the earlier National Youth Policy, it would have identified or defined young people as, between the ages of 15 to 24. But we've realized during the course of that youth policy, we've realized that, hey, a lot of young people are still not being served. A lot of young people after graduation, whether it be at the secondary or tertiary level, still requires assistance. And we've recognized, and so that was taken in consideration, and through consultation with some of your peers at the time in between the 2013 to 2016 policy revision period, that same point came out. Why is it so narrow? And when we've looked at other literature, like in Japan, the definition, one of the main definitions for young people, the age marker definition, that is literally goes up to 35 years. But their socioeconomic and cultural situation is different. The UN definition for young people is between 15 to 24 years. And I think the UN in revising, because the UN now is at a place where they are revising several of their policy documents on youth. And so you might find a few years from now that the UN will move up the age marker for you to 29 or maybe a bit over, because we've recognized world over that young people are underserved in a lot of areas, whether it be education and training, whether it be employment and entrepreneurship, whether it be diverting youth, youth who have run in conflict with the law. And so we find that a lot of nations, not only developing states, but developed nations, have been revising that age marker definition. And this is just one way of defining youth. There is, as you've recognized now from my presentation, that there is no universally accepted definition for youth. Nation states use varying definition based on the socioeconomic condition and the lived experience of those young people in their country. Now for Jamaica, as was established in the present in the icebreaker, we have approximately 28% of our population, representing the number 759,757 being young population. It says greater attention must be paid to them, because what you've realized, over a quarter of our population literally is young people. And it does matter how we treat with them in terms of providing them with the necessary interventions, programs, or services for their holistic development. Now, again, here is this third pointer says youth development here focuses on the experiences and the ways in which these experiences provide opportunities for you to achieve their full potential. So when we talk about youth development, and we use the term a lot, but no, you know, if you did not, that it focuses on really the lived experiences of our young people and ways in which these experiences may provide opportunities or may actually be barriers, and how we can treat with those barriers, enablers, or opportunities to facilitate the full potential of our young people, to have them actualize their dreams and their aspiration, and so contributing to a Jamaica as what is said in the Vision 2030 document, a Jamaica that we all want to be, that place to live, work, retire, and do business. No, so we're going to get into the youth issues, and as I've said before, the first part of the presentation today is to really concentrate on a background to youth development. And so over the next 10 minutes, and then I'll wrap up, and then we will move into part 2 next week or the other weekend, whenever you guys have confirmed that next schedule. So we're going to get into that now. So what are some of the issues essentially that shaped the national youth policy in terms of the goals, in terms of the national commitments? So there are several issues, and you'll realize when we get into the presentation, the part 2 presentation, that how these issues connects to young people, or connects rather to the goals. Now, anybody wants to take any guess on some of the issues that I'll share and maybe discuss with you right now? Anybody? You're and it's expected. I'm sure that you guys are familiar with some of the issues, even if you haven't read the youth policy. I'm 100% sure, because you're all youth leaders and you would have been maybe affected by some of these issues. So you could just chime in and share some of those issues with me now before we move on. Anybody? Anybody? So, Miss Taylor, Miss Warmington, who wants to chime in? Siobhan, and just chime in vocally, please. That helps in terms of the interactivity. So you could just chime in and share with us any issues. So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Brown, you want to share some of those issues? All right, so we have here from Lorraine Taylor, lack of opportunity like employment opportunity. Yes, we are going to get into that. That's one of the issues. All right, let me rephrase it the next way then. What are some of the issues you think or that have impacted you coming up as not only a youth leader, but some of the challenges you would have faced during your during maybe the last 5 years. But I know the youth council ranges from those in their teens straight up into their 20s. So what are some of the issues that have affected you? So I have here education again. It's too expensive. Yes. All right.
Lack of training opportunities.
Lack of training opportunity, a big one, big one. And you might, I'm not sure if I'm trying to pull this out from you because nothing that I'll discuss with you today as issues, how would I put it? None of those issues that I'll be discussing, it's not that you're not aware of them. It's just that perhaps you wouldn't have maybe deliberately discussed those. And we want to position you guys as young people, as youth leaders who are aware of these issues because you're representing youth. And it is in being aware of these issues that you basically shape programs and services or be that relevant and legitimate voice that represents young people. And that's why I'm literally asking you guys to name some of those, because I know you know. So we might have pulled up these issues through academic research, but hey, all of that academic research would have been done in consultation with grassroots people, grassroots youth on the ground. So I see here from Bartley, financial issue. That's a big one as well. Cost of living, etc. Okay, great. All right. And how many of you have been impacted in some way or another by these? Just indicate, but chime in or just drop a message. But how many of you? If we were to take a survey in this group, how many of you as youth leaders have been impacted by some of these issues that have been listed here today? I'm very much confident that maybe, if not all of you, maybe 98% of you have been impacted in some way or the other by some of these issues. And hence why you now have that opportunity to not only represent on behalf of our young people, but to speak from those experiences as well. Yes, Onisia McCormack, go ahead.
I was just indicating that I have been affected.
Which one of these issues mind sharing?
Alrighty, so cost of living is number one. You know,
And
well, it's not
and that would
really
have impacted several other things, I'm sure, like your access to education.
right.
But yeah.
That's correct. So cost of living is a major one. I always say that anyone that is living in Jamaica is rich, you know. But yeah. So
Okay.
the cost of living impacts everything else that I'm seeing here as well.
All right, thanks for sharing. You see, and I'll say before I move into the next slide, guys, and that what makes you really good at leading is two things to me. how you manage your interpersonal relationship. And the next and most and equally important is your awareness of these issues and how you use them to shape how you lead and represent the welfare and interest of the Jamaican youth. It comes down to that, literally. All right. So let's see here. Okay, let's go back. I'm moving too fast. All right, so we have the first issue here. Nobody would have identified this, but I'm sure a lot of you guys have been impacted by it. I have been impacted by it. Yes, I'm no longer a youth. I've now moved out of that 24 to 29 age cohort, but I've been impacted by it. And so I'm sure you all have been impacted by it somewhere or another. And even for those very rich and wealthy persons, they have been just the same. It impacts all of us. Man is crime and violence. And what we have found when we were undertaking the revision of this, the youth policy in 2015 alone, a total of 1,600 plus young people were arrested for either murder, shooting, robbery, breaking, larceny, rape, and aggravated assault. And this issue, believe me, is not in isolation. It's not in a vacuum. There are some other connected issue that would have led young people to resort to murder, to robbery, to breaking, and aggravated assault. Which people just don't enter a life of crime just like that. And some of those connected issues are, for one, cost of living, as would have been identified. And next one is access to education. And you'll see how the issue of crime and violence is connected and how we need to treat with this, not on its own, but in connection to the other issues. Now, it says here also that young men are more likely to participate in criminal activities such as gangs and civil conflict, while young women are most likely to be victims of domestic violence. And since the pandemic, we have seen how the pandemic have exacerbated some of these issues, especially the issue of domestic violence in our homes. We have seen how parents have enraged, basically hurt and their child, and how some parents, how enraged that would have led to hospitalization as well. We have seen how it has exacerbated other connected things as well, and we'll get into those. The next issue is education and training. But no, it says here, although young persons have equal access to educational opportunity, the quality of education depends on the school a person attends. And you all know this. This quality gap reinforces social and economic exclusions. Now, what are some of those social and economic exclusions we are talking about? What are some of those quality gaps we're talking about? Some of these quality gaps we're talking about is your ability, if you're in, let's say, and then how would I put it? All right, I'll just put it as how we're putting it currently. So we have a thing we call traditional and non-traditional high school. The ministry does not recognize a traditional high school versus a non-traditional recognized high school. But our socioeconomic situation and cultural situation have led to that big gap that we need to bridge. So you know that in some traditional or so-called traditional high school, they'll have greater access to better resources, better labs, state-of-the-art facilities, maybe students getting the opportunity to do robotics and all of that. Meanwhile, a school in a rural area, they're about have an issue in terms of having stable, just light connection or power connection, or having a upgraded bathroom facilities, that sort of stuff. And all of those impacts quality education, upgraded state-of-the-art lab, that sort of stuff. And so we, and it goes even to the maybe the quality teacher or the quality delivery of education that you're getting. So the policy have identified this, and it would have identified some strategies when we get into the goals on how to address some of these to make access to quality education and training equitable, meaning a level playing field for everyone, fair access, regardless of your socioeconomic position. It says here approximately 2/3 of persons in grade 11 fail to obtain qualification to get into post-secondary institution. That's a lot of people. That is a lot of people, a lot of young people not obtaining the necessary qualifications to move into tertiary studies. And so we need to figure out ways, and the youth policy would have communicated some strategies as well to address this in terms of lower, increasing our pass rate, especially in subjects like math and English, because those are compulsory based and are required if you're going to matriculate into university, or required for a lot of work. And so we need to figure out a way to increase that sort of pass rate, and also our retention rate, because we have a lot of school dropouts just the same for several different reasons. And next issue is health and well-being. So we would have realized in the study that we would have coordinated or undertaken when we were doing the revision for the policy that, hey, young people have limited access to reproductive health services. And these limited access makes young people vulnerable to negative reproductive and health outcomes. And what are some of those? We're talking about STI transmission. Really, we're talking about teenage pregnancies, because young people are not necessarily equipped with the necessary education and resources to deal with, or yes, to handle themselves as adolescents. Now, the three major health issues that are plaguing Jamaican youth are external causes. One, we have homicides and traffic accidents, believe it, traffic accidents. And you all know that we have a very, very high traffic accident rate in Jamaica. On average, we have over 300 and odd people being killed off in traffic accidents alone in Jamaica. And then our homicides rate, on average, we have over 1,200 people being killed in connection with murder and robberies and all of those criminal activities. And these activities impact young people. And then the next big one is degenerative diseases and communicable disease. And one of the biggest degenerative and communicable disease we're talking about sometimes is or in connection to diet or health. And so you'd have realized a few years ago, the Ministry of Education in partnership with the Ministry of Health would have rolled out what we call a nutrition in school policy, because we've recognized even the school canteens are offering some unhealthy meals and sodas and all sorts of stuff, as you realize illustrated in this cartoon right here. And you might ask, how does this maybe impact quality education? We've realized from a lot of studies that the food young people eat affects their ability to focus in the classroom. It affects, and it not only affects their ability, their academic ability, but it also affects their health. in so many ways. We find that we have an increasingly amount of young people being suffering from some lifestyle health diseases like obesity, diabetes, younger and younger. And maybe 10 years ago, you would necessarily find diabetic based, how would I put it, as a non medical professional diabetic based traces in young people then. But we find increasingly that our young people are becoming very more are prone to lifestyle-based health issues. And this is one of the big ones. Adolescents account for 67% sexual assault cases seen in public hospitals. And we'll get into that some more. We have two more issues and then I'll just close off for this session. The next one is employment and training opportunities. And you see a nice cartoon here, euphemistically stating that it's nice, but it's depicting a very, very sorry situation. Here it says now, our young people, a large portion of Jamaica's youth population is unemployed, with 36% of persons who are unemployed in the labor force between the ages of 14 to 24. So imagine if we were to increase that the age range to 29, it means therefore that the 36% would most likely increase. So a major part of our labor force being represented or accounted for by being youth are having challenges accessing decent jobs. Now, young females are more likely to be unemployed at a rate of 40.7%, and unemployment rate for male is 25. So you realize here, the unemployment rate for females is literally twice the amount. And listen to this again, the unemployment rate for young people in general is twice and sometimes triple, most times triple the general labor market unemployment rate. So you remember when we had a record low unemployment rate of about 7% in, I think it was about 2019 thereabout. And if you were to check the unemployment rate for young people, you've realized it was in the 20s, and it still is. And so we need to do something about that, because even with how should I say, even though we are not churning out the amount of tertiary graduates we want, you find out the ones that are young people who are coming from the tertiary education space have significant challenges in accessing job opportunities or creating job opportunities, and rural youth are impacted by this even greater. So then we have the issue of youth participation. So we all remember the last election in 2020. Now, on the Commonwealth measures youth development on some index, about 6 index. One of those index is youth participation and volunteerism. And Commonwealth in the last index published would have said or indicated that, hey, we've ranked very, very high in youth participation. And when it was broken down into what we call a subdomain index in terms of volunteerism and civic participation, we've realized that we were ranked even higher in terms of volunteerism, but civic participation was low. Meaning that essentially we're not participating in the electoral process for several reasons. Young people are scared, they feel that they're labeled, all those type of things. And it would have been reflective in our last election. We had the second lowest voter turnout in history, guys, at 37-point-something%, if I remember correctly. And that would have been, that worked out to about 900,000 plus Jamaicans voting, and the winning party taking, I think, 500 plus, and the losing party taking the remainder. And when we've looked on the data, it suggests that it's mostly really those persons who would have been voting from way back in the days, older folks. So we need to do something about this. It's good that we have very good youth participation rate in terms of on the volunteerism domain, but we really need to improve on how can we get young people more involved in political participation. And we will examine these some more when we look at the goals and priority areas next week. And for that, I'll just close on youth rights and responsibilities right now. I'll pick up back right here at the next session where we'll go into the goals and the priority areas and then share more media or learning based media materials with you guys so we could have some more discussion. So that's where I'll stop for now. I hope you guys would have learned something so far, and I hope it was good. All right, so back over to whomever is the chairperson for this session. Whether it be Guyan or Mr. Pierce, if I remember correctly. Back over to you guys.
Okay, thank you, Sir Horton. Thank you so very much. Thank you for providing such comprehensive content. And we have a responsibility to do as young people and youth leaders alike, because the policy says, policy starts with a vision and it ends with a change. But just before we reaches or we arrives at the change, there is something that we must do as young people. We must be engaged. And when we are engaged, it will allow us to make meaningful contributions. So I want to, on behalf of the National Exec and the Parish Executive, as well as all the youth members who are on the call this afternoon, thank you for taking us through that section of the youth policy. And we thank you in advance for what is to come. Certainly, you would have delved into salient points, and those information will serve as a basis on which we will proceed. Thank you so much, sir. At this time,
yeah, man, I was just saying thank you guys again for having me. I look forward to part 2 of the presentation, where we'll get more into the policy and how you guys may apply it in your leadership. So thanks again.
You are welcome. Just before we close, we will entertain any question you might have as it relates to that section of the National Youth Policy. So if you have any question, feel free to raise your hand or open your mic. And in the meantime, guys, please complete the registration form. I just reshared it in the chat. All right, so I'm not seeing any activity as it relates to questions. So I want to take the opportunity to extend warmest thanks to you all for coming out this afternoon and sharing in part 1 of the National Youth Policy. By virtue of information, we will meet on August 4th, where Mr. Sean Davis will be presenting on a very important tool, being the Constitution of the National Youth Council of Jamaica. So we meet again on August 4th at 5:30. We will be in consultation with Mr. Horton as it relates to concretizing a date for part 2. As soon as that is sorted out, that information will be circulated. But until then, until August 4th at 5:30. We will see you all same time, same place. And I do hope that you enjoy the rest of the evening and, continue to be safe. Continue to enforce the protocols because, especially at this time, the youth populace deserves and the youth populace is expected to enforce the rules as established by the Ministry of Health and Wellness and of course the government of Jamaica. So guys, until then, do enjoy the rest of the evening and God bless you all. Thank you for coming out. Just before I close though, I want to pause. How can I want to recognize our chairman, Mr. Chevron Brown. My humblest apologies, sir. I remember that I did not welcome you in the onset of the presentation, so I paused to recognize you. We're happy to have you, and we're happy that you were able to share in this training session. Guys, thank you for coming out and have a good evening.
Yeah. 2-2. Push load up. Yeah. Excuse me, no pagans. Now seek validation. Toast and admiration from you nor your patrons. Boasting about name brands. We cost over 8 grand. When me searching up the same ones for the cost of a straight pants. Why own a Ferrari with nowhere to park it, boy? Why shop a Louis V when there is a Target? Now me hype on my face it. 2 minds me a save it. Them go fend if it trendy. Bank account can't empty. Broke acres over markets. Link me wife when me want sex. Cause when side girl breathe,